Hello, my name is Heather Smith, and you are clicked on to look at a session of payroll training basics in Xero. This is only for Australian users or people using the Australian Xero version, and it's all the basics that you need to know around payroll. So I'm going to run through setting up a payroll system, setting up employees. I'll run through a pay run, and I'll look at a few of the end of financial year things that you need to do around payroll. I encourage you to perhaps grab a cup of tea while you're watching this. Get your own version of Xero up on, if you're running with two monitors, get it up on the other monitor, and just sort of relax, listen to what I'm saying, then sort of go back, make some notes and apply it to your own scenario, or just simply check up your own scenario. The benefits of watching it via video like this means you can stop and start it at any stage, and you can fast forward if I've perhaps covered something, I'm about to cover something that's not relevant for you. I also encourage you to seek specialist expert help if you have a particular payroll scenario. Payroll can get very, very, very tricky depending on the setup that you're dealing with. So I do encourage you to do that. This advice, this training is only of a general nature, just of a general nature to help people get started, sort of kickstart their use of payroll in Xero. So for those of you who don't know, my background is I'm the author of the Xero for Dummies series. I also am the host of the Cloud Stories podcast. I run this YouTube channel, and I sort of generally create content around cloud business. So hopefully some of that is of interest to you, and maybe you'll connect with me on the various different levels that I'm operating on. So let's get started. What I'm going to do is create a brand new Xero file. And the reason I'm doing that is I want you to know there's nothing happening in the Xero file. It's just a generic, brand new startup file. So here I am at the setup guide in Xero, and I'm just going to click next as many times as I can. The display name I'm leaving as Australian Payroll Training Basics, which is fine. So I've just actually made up false information here. I added an Australian business number and a postal address, which is totally false, because I need this information when I'm processing some of the other creating some of the payroll forms that will be submitted to government, the Australian Taxation Office. So I have that in place when it's needed for those forms. I'm going to click on next there, and you can see I'm entering my financial information here, and I'll just drop through to a cash basis. But that's all okay for me. Click on next. Invoice settings doesn't bother me here. No, I'm skipping that page. Invite users. No, I'm not inviting anyone, so I'm skipping that page. I'm not adding a currency. One of the main reasons I want you to see what I was doing was when you come to the chart of accounts option, you have the option to use the default chart of accounts provided by Xero. So I'm using the Xero chart of accounts. You may, of course, be using your own own business chart of accounts, which is completely fine. Just be aware what I'm doing and what I'm referring to. I'll have no account balances. So this is my chart of accounts come through here. I just want to point out one thing. What I would do is I would call this top one superannuation expense, and I would call this one here superannuation liability. I would just change the names to that to make it actually easier to understand. And I'm going to just, for simplicity's sake, just choose a January conversion date. So I'm recording this in May 2015. I don't have any opening balances to put in. I just wanted to set that quickly up. and the setup is complete for me. So in terms of payroll, the dashboard opens up and nothing really for us to do there on the dashboard. Before I actually go in and set up the payroll settings, which is one of the first things I'm going to do, I'm first going to have a look at tracking. Now let's click on Settings, General Settings, and on the left-hand side we have tracking. So tracking enables you to track various different transactions, and then you can actually see them. You can see them, call up on them via reports. So it gives you additional insights on reports. So I wanted to add these here so you can see how they can be used in payroll. So I'm going to add one here, add tracking category. I can only add 2 categories. Drop down. This is going to be my payroll tracking. I'm just calling it that name so you can really see what I've done. So I've created 3 different category options here, which you could see typically would cover some businesses. I'm saving that. And I'm going to add one more. I only have the ability to add one more there. Click on Add Tracking Category. And this one I'm going to call Project Tracking. Okay, so maybe we're tracking the effectiveness of the wiggles. Red, blue and yellow. Scroll down a little bit and I'm going to click Save there. So I have 2 tracking categories set up. One called Payroll Tracking, one called Project Tracking. And you don't need to worry about them too much now, but I want you then to see how they're going to affect payroll when we use them. The second thing I'd like to do before I jump into payroll is just talk very, very quickly about report layouts. Now, I'm clicked on my reports and got to the All Reports area, and I want to go to my profit and loss report. Here it is here, so I'm going to click on my profit and loss report. There's no information. We know there's no information in this organization. Come down to the bottom left where it says layout options. I'm going to select the option create new layout. And for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to call it the payroll training, and I'll give it the description, demonstrate grouping of payroll. Okay. And what I want to do is come down, see here, what you have are, if we come down here, we have various accounts that relate to payroll. So you can see superannuation, and you can see here wages and salaries. What I want to do is select the wages and salary, select the superannuation, scroll up to the top here, and I want to group those selected accounts. Group selected accounts. I'm going to call it people expenses, and I'm allocating it to operating expenses. And I won't show a summary, but you do have that option there to show a summary. So I took wages and salaries, superannuation, and I am grouping them in people expenses. Click OK. Pull myself down a bit here, and there I have people expenses. So if I come along while we're working on the payroll, and if we perhaps we set up another account that is an expense that's going to appear on the P&L, profit and loss statement, I would need to come back in here and put that account line, that general ledger line, and pull it back and group it with people expenses. Now, we're not going to be able to see anything yet because there's no information in it, but I wanted you to know about that at the start. So I'm coming up here. Notice I haven't made this my default profit and loss statement for all users, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to save it because these are like filters. Those report layouts are like filters, and we can just keep laying them over the same information and people can get different perspectives. I think most businesses will benefit from grouping payroll expenses together. So we've looked at tracking, we've looked at reports. Let's pop over here to settings and we'll start doing our payroll settings. Settings, payroll settings. Now I'm recording this in May 2015 and you can see the bar across the top has lots of helpful information in it, and you may want to jump in and look through that, which I encourage you to do. But I need to save real estate on my screen, maximize what I can look at, so I'm actually going to come here and hide my help. The first thing is add payroll accounts. So I need to assign the bank account and the Xero account you'll use to pay your employees. So I'm going to click here, add payroll accounts. And this has come through to what you will always see when you look at payroll settings. Okay, so it's come through and said, okay, this is what it's looking like. And again, you have a link to a video, a link to payroll support there, and I'm going to hide the help again because I want that real estate, and we're going to work through it ourselves. Now this requires me to allocate a bank account, which I didn't do while I was looking at the chart of accounts. So I have gone through. I stopped the recording. I went back and I added a bank account. So if we come here and click on bank account and drop down option, here we have bank account. This is the bank account sitting in this organization. So for you, it may just be it's going to be the bank account that you pay the wages out of. So that may be the main transactional bank account for the business. You're going to click on the drop down arrow and choose that. The pay-as-you-go liability account links to 825 PAYG withholding payable. That's excellent. The wages expense account links to 477 wages and salaries. So if you aren't using the generic Xero chart of accounts, you need to work out which ones you need to have allocated there. This is the expense account that the wages are allocated to. Over here, we have the wages payable account, and this is linked to 804 wages payable payroll. So you are very likely not to have this account if you have your own chart of account brought across into Xero. So I would probably encourage you to set up your own wages payable account, or simply create a new one called 804 wages payroll, and that's going to be a liability account. So every time we process the payroll, the amount to be paid out will sit in the liability account until it's physically paid out, and through the reconciliation process you can match that off. Then we have the next one along is the superannuation liability account. And this one is 826 superannuation payable. Remember, I wanted that called the liability account, but I didn't change it so as not to confuse people. But that's essentially your superannuation liability account. And then over here we have our superannuation expense account, which is linked to superannuation. Now, if you have a legacy file that you're bringing across into Xero, or if you're used to setting up multiple superannuation expense accounts, I would highly encourage you not to do that. Try to run it through a single superannuation expense account here in Xero, and you'll see that you'll be able to identify the different accounts it's going to through various other means. But we really discourage you doing that because there are other options to select it as you go through to help you identify the various different superannuation accounts that people may be using. So down here, this is payroll tracking. So remember we were talking about this, I set up tracking and I did that so I would have the options here. So here in payroll tracking, what I'm going to do is the employee group, I'm going to choose the drop down arrow and select payroll tracking. And so for the employee group, they are linked to payroll tracking. And you will see a few steps ahead that from that, I will then be able to select the tracking options to individual employees. Okay. Now, This one is timesheet categories. And if I click on the drop down option, it it won't let me it won't let me use the same two, which I didn't want to use, but I thought it would pop up and tell me when I did it, allocated it. But no, it's doing what I thought. It won't allocate. It won't allow me to do that. So I need to select project tracking. So imagine your staff are going to be in the field and or wherever they are, filling out their timesheets, and they're going to have access to project tracking, which we set up. Remember, it was red, blue, and yellow. But for you, it might be something else. Maybe it's different street names or different job names or something like that. Tracking is not a job costing function, but it does give you the ability to track individual transactions and be able to run reports on them. Okay, so I'm just going to shut that down. Oh, that looked a bit ugly, didn't it? And there we have it. Set up our payroll settings, the front page of it. I'm going to click save. So I clicked on calendars and it's opened up to the pay calendars area. Now, it takes a few seconds, a few moments at each section to save something. So just let it be and let it go through that process, because it's kind of, I don't know, the wheels in the background are doing the work that they need to do. So just give it a few seconds. Don't impatiently just keep clicking on the buttons. So, pay calendars. This is the calendar upon which the people, the employees, are going to get paid. So I'm going to select here. These both do the same thing here. Add pay calendar. And in my scenario, how often will I pay employees? I'll pay them weekly. But you can see there you've got a lot of different options. Probably don't need to go through that, but you can see I'm going to go for weekly. And the name of this calendar, it's called itself the Weekly Dash Calendar, but I could have called it the, how about so I'm going to give it the name, the Australian Payroll Training Basics, which is crazy. However, you'll clearly see when that happens. And I'm going to, the pay period starts. You can see as soon as I clicked in there, a calendar popped open, and I might start back in April. So I'm going to start in April. This pay period ends on the 7th of April, and I will have the payment date popping back in here. And I can't see it, but I will choose the payment date. Oh, if I scroll down a little bit, I can see it. How about I choose the payment date to be the 8th, so which is the day after the week has been undertaken. So you know the full week is up, has happened. You know whether they've worked or not. They've submitted all their timesheets, hopefully, and you're able to process the pay the next day. And it gives you some additional information here. The upcoming payment dates are going to be the 8th of April, 15th of April, 22nd of April and 29th of April. And that might assist you in understanding if you've set it up correctly based on what calendar you're working. I always like to, at Christmas time when the businesses are always offering free calendars, to grab one and just have it as the payroll calendar on the desk and just go through at the start of the year and just tick them all off. Make sure that you've got them and double check. But we are all trying to go cloud and let all these things work for us. So maybe you can double check those dates look correct for you. I'm adding that payroll calendar. Now, I'm going to add another one just so you can see what's going to happen. I'm going to add another one, and this one will be a monthly payroll. Monthly, I'm going to leave it all the same, and it's going to start on the 1st of April. The reason why I'm adding this, because I just want you to see what happens when I process through. So this is just a monthly one. You can see the two of them sitting there. I didn't even give it a name. There, I gave it a name. It does seem to be pushing me to capitalize that. And payroll calendars have been updated. Sensational. Now I'm going to pop across and click on the next tab, which is holidays. So in this scenario, you can, in this tab, the holidays tab, you can set up the holidays that are applicable to your workplace. So for me, that would be Queensland. So I'm going to select Queensland. And I can run through and see what holidays have come through in Queensland. This is for this period. And you can see I've got my New Year's Day, Australia Day, Good Friday, Easter Sunday, Easter Monday, Anzac Day, Queen's Birthday, Labor Day, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day. And you know what? I don't have. One of the things that happens in Queensland is we get a show day holiday. I'm sure we still get the show day holiday. So the thing with this actual holiday is it changes and it's different for everyone. So they couldn't actually put it in there. But I'm going to pretend the employees work in Brisbane, and so they also have the 12th of August in 2015 off as a holiday. So I'm going to click here in payroll settings and I'm going to add a holiday. And it's the Royal Queensland Show holiday. I'll just copy that. It's actually the local Brisbane people call it the Ekka. Oh, the name. And it was the 12th of August, which you probably remembered, and that won't be in this financial year. That would have been in the previous financial year. Oh well, we can still add it. It's not going to affect us in this financial year, but gives us the opportunity to add it, and there we can add it to the Queensland group. But what I need to put here is Brisbane. So what happens if you look through, and this particular, it's a quite quirky one, but if you lived in Logan, if you live in Ipswich, I think it's Ipswich, if you live in Toowoomba, so if you live anywhere outside of Brisbane, the day's different, the holiday day's different, and I think the holiday day's even different for people on the Gold Coast, etc. So that shows you how to add a holiday if you actually need to add a holiday. And we are Queensland. Fantastic. Now I'm going to go to the next tab along, the fourth tab along, pay items. And you can see here under the pay items, under the left-hand side, I have earnings, deductions, reimbursement, and leave. And I also, on the right-hand side, I have the option to add earnings rates. Now, if you've brought in a generic if you've brought in your own chart of accounts, all of the accounts linkings won't be happening here, and you will actually need to go through very carefully and add the accounts here that are needed to be added. So, for an employee's basic earnings, we have ordinary hours. I'm just going to click on that. So for their basic earnings, they have ordinary hours. The display name, there's a different option if you wanted to do something different there. Earnings category is ordinary times earning. So that little T needs to either be a capital or the E needs to be a little e, doesn't it? So that sometimes is referred to as OTE, ordinary times earnings. And you have the rate type there, which is rate per unit, and the type of units is hours, and you have the optional rate per unit. That is expense to that wages and salaries account, and you can see the options there, giving it the option to check that it's exempt from PAYG withholding or exempt from superannuation guarantee contribution. OTE, ordinary times earnings, is subject to both PAYG withholding and superannuation guarantee contribution. Just going to click on save on that. I didn't make any changes. I was happy with that one. I'm going to click on this one. This is overtime hours. So here we have the overtime hours exempt from super. And you could perhaps, what we could perhaps do is call it the overtime hours. Overtime hours, time and a half. And we have there the overtime earnings. See, it falls into a different earnings category. And the rate per unit, we could actually say it's a multiple of the employee's ordinary earnings rate. and we'll say it's time and a half. It's still allocated to the wages and salaries. So if the employee wanted to see overtime separately, that's an option that you could set up there if they wanted to do that quite easily. It is subject to PAYG withholding. It is exempt from superannuation guarantee contribution. There's no superannuation calculated on overtime. And there is the option there to accrue leave on it, that would probably depend on the award rate there. So I'm going to click on save on that. And just as an example, I'm going to add one more in there. However, might be completely irrelevant for you. So don't feel that you need to add this. I just want to show you this. So I'm adding overtime, double time, and I will select it, making sure I select overtime earnings there, and the rate type, multiple employees rates, and this is going to be double time, so it's going to be 2, and here I should just be able to type in wages, select that, make sure I choose the options down here correctly. If you don't choose those options down there correctly, you're going to have a big effect on an effect on their payroll. So I'm going to save that. Now the other thing I'm going to add, just as an example, up here it says allowances exempt from tax withholding and super. So maybe this person is entitled to a travel allowance. The earnings category is allowance. The rate type, we're going to say fixed. Maybe we're going to say $25. And it's actually likely that it won't be an expense account. It won't be a wages and salaries expense account. So I'm actually going to click save here because I'm going to go back in and change and create a new account. Now, up here, go up to the tab, go up to the browser window, go up to the tab and click duplicate. Look, I'm looking at the exact same screen. I'm going to click on settings, chart of accounts, and I'm going to add an account, and the account type is going to be an expense. I don't know, so I'm just going to put TA. I can come back and change that afterwards. This is a travel allowance. It doesn't have GST on it, it's BAS excluded. I could show it on the dashboard watch list, but there's not really anywhere I really want to show that. So I'm just going to save that, pop back in here. Now, I need to allocate it here, but notice this, if I click on that and then look for it, it's not there. The travel allowance account's not there. What I need to do is come back in here. See this button here, refresh? So if I go and do some work in Xero elsewhere, I need to come back and refresh the screen. So I've reloaded the page, clicked here, drop down, travel allowance. Look at that, fantastic. I'm going to select save, and there you have it. So various different earnings accounts, they're the general ones. If you have people with specific requirements, then you are going to have different ones set up there, but you get the idea of how it works. Now I'm going to click on deductions. I rarely see deductions set up, so I'm not going to do too much in here. It's perhaps around something that the accountant has advised you to do. Okay, so you would need to come in here and change the liability account here. You would need to notify the settings whether it's going to reduce your PAYG, and you need to also make a note of whether it's going to reduce your SGC, your Superannuation Guarantee Contribution. Okay, so clicking onto reimbursements. Here we have two options, other reimbursable costs and travel costs. And so you could have travel costs. You could actually here, we have travel, it's not really travel allowance. We have travel national. So you could say the travel costs are related to travel national there if you wanted to. It wouldn't be related to suspense. You would need to change it. And you have the option to add additional reimbursements. So you're going to know whether you need to add reimbursements, and it is getting into a specialist area, both the deductions and reimbursements, and that's why I'm kind of not touching it too much. Then we have leave. So the fourth one down here is leave. I'm going to click on leave, and we have a lot automatically set up for you. So there's a lot of different ones already set up. So for a small business starting out, I am going to pop up here to annual leave and click on that. And so here we have annual leave, category type paid leave, type of hours, type of units is hours. If there's leave loading and the rate on it, leave loading is an old-fashioned Australian thing. So if you're a new business, it's unlikely to affect you. If you're an old business or you still have this legacy rate, you would put 17.5% there. I think that's the current annual leave loading rate. What it is, it means, for those of you who don't know, when people went away on holiday and took leave, they actually got paid extra money. They actually got paid more than their normal money, I guess, to encourage them to go on leave. And here, this is based on a 40-hour week, 4 weeks entitlement by 40 hours. If you are running on a 38-hour week, it would be 4 weeks entitlement at 38, which would be 152 there. And I have the option down here, show the balance on the pay slip. Remember, you will be showing the annual leave balance on the pay slip. I don't think that is a requirement, and so it's something that you need to think about whether you want to do that or not. Now, the other main one, drop down here, is your personal carers leave. And you have personal carers leave. Now, that's what we used to call sick leave. It's now called personal carers leave. It's paid leave. Type of units is hours. Leave loading rate. And then here, normal entitlements, 80. So that's 2 weeks, 2 by 40 hours in the week gives you 80. Of course, if you had a 38-hour week, that would be 76 there. And here isn't ticked show balance on the pay slip. Now, we will tick it for the point of this exercise, but you don't need to tick it. And your employer probably doesn't want the employees to know how much paid leave they still have available to them. It's probably something they just kind of happy to do, but keep quiet about it. So I'm going to click on save there. And you can see the summary of the information comes through here as well. And you also have various other various other pay items there. You have your long service leave, etc. So what I'll say about long service leave is if you're starting up in business, typically people don't worry about long service leave until it's about the 5th year, and then they start accumulating it. So it's up to you if you want to do it, but typically businesses are like, no, happy to wait a while before we start doing all of that. And sometimes some of these things you need to set up as and when they happen, rather than set up for every requirement at the beginning. Okay. So now I'm going to pop over and click on pay slips. Okay, so this is the pay slip. Not really that many options here. Now, the logo that's going to appear on the payslip is going to be that Xero symbol, which of course you can leave there, or you could add your own symbol. Probably makes sense to add your own business logo there. However, obviously Xero would be happy for you to leave theirs there. Then you have the options down here: show annual salary, show employment basis. Depending on how the person is employed, you may prefer for their annual salary not to be shown there. So again, think about that. If they're employed on $25 casual rate an hour and actually only work 8 hours a month, you don't want a massive annual salary to be appearing on their payslip, because it will be confusing for both you and for them, probably more so them, but so think about that. And then you've got show employment basis, whether you want to show the employment title that they have. Okay, so I'm not making any changes there, and I'm going to click on save. And I probably didn't even need to click on save there. I'm going to select the final payroll setting, which is superannuation, the final payroll setting. So Xero is working really well with the superannuation providers in Australia, and it has this sort of database of information that it's pulling from. So hopefully this is going to make your life easier. Now I'm setting up this organisation on a standard Xero package, which costs $50. Now Xero has different subscription rates, and you can find them on the website, and you can find them look obviously at the point in time that you're looking at it. I presume you might not all be looking at it the same month that I'm recording this. And the subscription rate is dependent typically on the number of employees. That's a really big criteria. And that's what seems to affect most of my clients, is if they start employing more people, the subscription rate changes for them, okay? So when you go to a larger package, so I'm on the $50 package at the moment. If you go to a larger package employing up to about 10 people, you then have an additional option within the superannuation called auto superannuation. So this is something that I would encourage you to look at. If superannuation is taking you any time whatsoever, I'd encourage you to look at it, because I think it will save you a significant amount of time. What we want to do is automate as much as possible and bring efficiency into the process of managing your accounts. So let's go through and we'll add a super fund. There's no super funds here. Why I say that is you need to add the accurate details of the super fund at this stage so the auto super can work, okay? So we've got lots of things that we're setting up so as building blocks, as foundations, so the other things will work. So let's add the super fund. And I'm going to just search for a really big one. This is a really big one. It's actually based in Brisbane. Sun Superannuation Fund. So what you need to do is when you have employees, you need to ask them their super fund details, and you need to get their number, so your own number. I don't know what the employer number is right at this moment in time, so I'm going to put in 01, but I would come back and put in the accurate details once I knew what they were. So I'm going to go add that, and I'm going to add another one, add superannuation fund here. Now if I knew the USI, oh my goodness, I'm not even sure what it stands for, USI. Let's see if it tells me. No, it doesn't even tell me there what it stands for. I'm going to look for another one. Now this is an excellent one to pull up. Look at that. How many times, I can't tell you how many times people will say, oh, he said his fund is with blah, blah, blah. And then I go and search for blah, blah, blah. And there's like 20 different funds. So you really need to know the exact name of the fund or the reference numbers of the fund so you actually pick the correct one. So let's pick up... that's not going to be it. So let's just we'll pick up the ANZ Smart Choice Super just for no reason whatsoever. Obviously that's not an endorsement of either of those funds, just picking them up. They're regulated. I should just mention, if you had a self-managed super fund, you could put the name here, the ABN, the electronic service address alias. You get that address, the electronic service address alias sounds very exciting. You get that address from the person who is managing your self-managed super fund. So for myself, that is my personal tax accountant. He manages the super fund. He manages the self-managed super fund, and he gave me that information. The employer number and the bank account details. With a self-managed super fund, the employer number is likely to be 1. And I'm going to click close on that because I'm not setting up one up, but showing you have both options there, reminding you that when people start business with you, you need to get all of the details of their superannuation so you can add in there. Fantastic. So what we have done is we have set up all of our payroll settings. So hopefully things are going to work for us. Now what I want to do is I'm going to come over here to the next section, which is popping over here to payroll. It's kind of confusing, just to remind you. Payroll settings was settings, general settings, and then you had to search for payroll settings. But then you pop over here to the left and we click on payroll. I'm just going to come over here and click on payroll and click on overview so you can see the payroll dashboard in all its glory. And you can see we looked at this initially when we first started looking at payroll and setting it up, and it says the payroll accounts are completed. Yes, we did that. It's not saying they're done correctly, okay? So it's saying they're completed, so you still need to ensure that they've been done correctly. And it says the pay calendars have been completed, so we're happy about that. And what we need to do is we actually need to add some employees. So here I have the button to add employees, but here I just want to highlight to you, I could have just gone straight to employees there. I'm just doing it this way. Either way is perfectly fine. Click on add employees, and again, video for you to look at, a help guide for you to go and have a look at. And I'm going to hide it because I want that real estate. And I'll take that opportunity to let you know that Xero provide their support via email. But when you have payroll specific support questions, the email address is payroll@xero.com. Okay, and I find the payroll, the email support exceptionally good from Xero. So if you do have problems, I would highly encourage you to just email them. I'm hoping to build up more videos like this. So if there's a video you think I can create, please let me know. Let's have a look at this. Okay, so we're setting up employees. So let's set up 2 employees. This is the first page here, popped in here, and you can see just all the basic information about an employee required here. Let me just go through. Okay, I've set up the basic information. I think that none of that is too difficult. They will want the address information there for producing the payment summaries at the end of the financial year. It's good to put in their personal email address there rather than the business one, in case you need to email them and they can't access the business one, or perhaps they've left the company. At least you know where to find them. And of course you've got the job title in there, but hopefully most of that's easy to understand and fill out. I encourage you to take a photo. Probably not too hard to get photos of people these days. I remember working in Singapore, and payroll was probably about 100 or 200 people, and really useful to have a photo of them when there's so many people there. So I'm going to click on save. We actually paid them in cash at the site. They were actually paid in cash at the site. So yeah, very difficult. Okay, so that person has been saved, and you can see as soon as they were saved, all of the tabs across the top have suddenly appeared like magic. And so we've got to work our way through them. So let's click on employment. Okay, so this person, Mr. Grey Elephant, we'll say he started on the 1st of April because that's when our pay calendar's starting, remember? And we will allocate him to a weekly payroll. We will say his classification is, obviously classification means different things to different people. I'm just going to call him a marketing manager, but you could put him, if you have those requirements in your employment laws, the rules that oversee your employment in your organisation. The employee group, remember this will not appear here unless you chose that for tracking, okay? If you didn't choose that option for tracking, it wouldn't appear here. So I'm going to say for this particular person, it's marketing. The holiday group for this particular person, I'm going to say is Queensland. And remember, we went and we actually added the Eka holiday in for Queensland. And the ordinary times earning rate for this person is ordinary hours. We will say they're authorised to approve leave. That means if someone submits a leave form, they can approve it. And we will say they're authorised to approve timesheets. Okay, so if someone submits a timesheet, they're authorised to approve it. Scrolling down a little bit, and we're going to add a super membership. Clicking on the button here, quite a big button. The fund, only the super funds that I set up in the payroll settings area are here. So I'll just select Sun Super, and you should put in the employee number. I don't know it, so I'm just going to put in 1 there. But you would put in the number there. And we will save it. You could add additional super memberships there. So you could have the superannuation split out if you wanted to. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to pop into taxes. Let's pop into taxes. And okay. So in the taxes area, pull down that screen a little bit. In the taxes area, you have more videos and more information. Once you've filled in this tax information here, you can submit it directly to the ATO. You don't need to fill out that sort of triplicate paper that you get from the post office or from the news agency. You no longer need to do that. So, woohoo, saved yourself maybe 30 minutes when someone gets employed. You no longer need to do that. You just fill it out here and you press the button and submit it. So I'm just entering a false tax file number there. I'm saying the employment basis is full-time employment. And you can see I've got various options down the bottom here. This person has been selected for Australian resident for tax purposes, and they're entitled to claim the tax-free threshold. And you've got various other options, whether they're subject to HECS or help desk. That's the higher education loan repayment scheme or contribution scheme, whether they're subject to financial supplement debt or variations requested, whether they're eligible to receive leave loading. Now, if in the other area, when I set up leave loading, that needs to be selected if you want leave loading to work. So the actual employee needs to be selected with leave loading that way, okay? And has approved withholding variations. So I think if you actually put it in, you can put the amount there. So now what we're going to do, what I'm going to do in this instant, is I'm going to actually just save it. But what you would do is you would click File and actually file that tax file declaration. Next tab I'm going to click on is my Leave tab. So here is my Leave tab, and nothing as much is happening there at the moment. This is, imagine I was the payroll staff member. I was in charge of doing the payroll, and Mr. Elephant came along and he said, Heather, I want you to add some leave for me. Well, this is where I can do it. Now, I'm going to show you a better way in a little while, but I'm going to show you this way initially. So I'm going to add some leave. The leave type is going to be annual leave, and he is going long weekend. You can put what you want in there, don't you? You can go see. So going to Byron Bay, he's obviously told. He's told the staff where he's actually going. It's in April, and we had the first week of April. So we're actually going to have that on the 10th. That sounds like a good day for that long weekend. And it's going to end. So it started on the 10th, ended on the 10th, and it's 8 hours. So here's a typical leave application I've just filled out. Annual leave, long weekend, Byron Bay, and the start date is the 10th of April. It is just the 1 day off, so I just entered it, ended on the 10th of April. And it's for the pay period, the week ending the 14th of April, and it's for 8 hours, because remember they run a 40-hour week, so a particular day only covers 8 hours. Now, if the person only took 5 hours off, you could obviously enter 5 hours. If the person took the holiday, but you process their payroll and then you realise they took the holiday, you can actually put it in and it will allocate itself to the next payroll, but it will record when the actual dates happened. So as long as you enter it, it'll be fine. You want to try and enter it, obviously, always on a timely basis, though. So this particular person has now negative 8 hours of annual leave because we've recorded that. And the annual leave is sitting there at negative 8 hours. Now I'm going to put in, click on the tab Bank Account. And here is where I can enter the bank account information for this particular person. So this is where I would put in the bank information for this employee. Statement text is wages. Maybe I'll put in APTB so he knows which business the wages are coming from. The account name, that's his own bank account's name. BSBN account numbers there also. Now there is the option to add additional bank accounts, and this can be a feature that staff members really like. And if you sort out batch payments, it's not too big a ordeal for actually processing the payroll if you want to do it that way. So let's click Save, and we'll click on Payslips now. We've not processed any pay runs, so there's no payslips. We'll now click on the Pay Template. Now this is one of the areas that you really need to pay some close attention to get right. And sometimes I find I will actually set someone up and maybe we're mirroring another accounting software program and we're pulling them across into Xero. And this helps them. And maybe we're mirroring another accounting program and I need to come back in here and keep adding things just to really fine tune this area. So don't be surprised if you find yourself in here a few times. So first one, let's add earnings line. And it always pops up with allowances because that's alphabetical. But we just want to give him, this person, Mr. Elephant, ordinary hours. And we're just going to click OK there. His ordinary hours are 40 hours. And I'll just give him a rate of 40. And that's his weekly wage. I'm going to add some overtime. Overtime hours. Click OK. That just sits in there. And I'm going to add some double time hours. And I will click in there. Fantastic. Scroll down a little bit. I don't have any deductions for this staff member. I do, however, have the superannuation. So I'm going to simply click superannuation. It's come up auto-filled with Sun Super. Excellent. The contribution type is superannuation guarantee contribution. Excellent. The statutory rate. Yep, that's exactly what I want. Statutory rate is nothing fancy here. The minimum monthly earnings is $450. Yes, it's $450. So the person needs to be paid more than $450 in the month to receive superannuation. However, if you are in the hospitality industry, it's a different rate. So I think it's like $350 a month. So that's worth checking out if you're in the hospitality. And for this particular one, the superannuation will be paid quarterly, and the payment due date for the superannuation that's accruing when I run the payroll is the 28th of July 2015. And I'm going to click OK on that. Fantastic. I'm going to just pull down a bit further. And reimbursement. Travel costs. Okay, so I could put some travel costs in there. And I'm just going to say OK. And it just means it's going to pop up when I do the pay run. So if it's relevant, I can add it. If it's not, I don't need to worry about it. Add leave line. So I definitely need to do this. Click on my add leave line. And the first one is annual leave. And I choose the option calculate based on ordinary time earnings. And so for the annual leave, hours of leave accrued each year by full-time employees is 160, which is 4 times 40 hours. And the hours in a weekly pay period for a full-time employee are 40 hours. I'm going to select OK on that. Need to scroll down a bit more and add some more leave in there. And this time I'm going to select personal carers leave, choose that option, and 80/40. Hours of leave accrued each year by a full-time member for their personal carers leave, which is their sick leave, is 80. And hours in a weekly pay period for full-time employees is 40, just like it was in the other one. Going to select OK there. Fantastic. Scroll down, click Save. Make sure you save as you go along. Then I'm going to pop across to this tab, which is Opening Balances. And these are the opening balances. So look what it says there, opening balances as at 12th of May 2015. That doesn't make much sense, does it? Because we're starting to pay them on the 1st of April 2015. So click on the drop-down option and change it to 1st of April. Click OK. Now, if this particular staff member had been working for you and you're moving your data from an existing accounting solution to Xero, then you would come through here and you would select Add Earning Line, select Ordinary Hours, click OK, and you'd add the amount in there, the year-to-date amount. And you would go through and add all of the different ones as you came across here. The total tax, you'd add the superannuation. Is that the right one? Yep, super. Click OK. You'd add the superannuation. You'd add it all, and your year-to-date figures should match what you had in the existing system. Probably, you can probably run it on the pay slip to see the year-to-date figures. In this scenario would be the 31st of March year-to-date figures for their payroll. Okay, but in this scenario, we started first on the 1st of April. So I'm going to click Save. And the final little tab here is Notes. So it's not a huge area for notes. Let's have a go at adding one. Add a new note. And I'm just going to click simply Save on that. And what it's recorded is the date it was recorded, who recorded it, and the actual note. When you set up a user, in fact, I should go and show you that. When you set up a user, you do have the options to give them payroll access or not. So this information, this type of information would only be available to those who have access in Xero to payroll information. See over here in this right-hand side, there's nothing. I'm going to click now on Opening Balances and see now that button has appeared. I've got this Options button. Click on the drop-down option here and let's see what we can do here. We can set a termination date. So if this employee is going to actually leave the business, we can terminate them. We can send them employee an invite. We can create leave accruals for this employee, and we can create leave accruals for all employees if we needed to. We could at this stage delete the Mr. Elephant because we haven't done anything with him yet. We could delete him. But what's really, really interesting is sending the employee invite. So I'm actually going to do that. Make sure you have the button displaying, and if you don't, check on one of the different tabs. Click on the drop-down option and send the employee invite. Are you sure you want to invite this employee to use the portal? Yes. Now this is really, really exciting. So you definitely want to do it. Excellent. So that has happened. I'm going to come and visit that later. I want to highlight that, you can see there. Notice how it was covered, privacy reasons, and then I can hover. So Mr. Grey Elephant's earning $83,200 salary, but year-to-date earnings are zero. Okay, which is it's really good to have those little privacy things, especially because you always have Mr. Snoopy in the office, don't you? Who's coming around and snoops over their payroll. You do have to be very careful when it comes to payroll and people snooping around. So we've set up one employee. I'm going to quickly go through and set up another employee, I think.